Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another DIY build. In today's video, we're going to be talking about these board and batten shutters that I made from standard cedar fence pickets. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe below and like these videos. This way, you stay up to date on all of our latest builds. Now, if you've recently been shopping around for shutters, you probably noticed they come in a wide range of styles and materials, many of which get pretty pricey, like these ones right here. And this is why I decided to build my own and show you guys how I did it. Let's check it out. Before we jump into the build, let's take a quick look at the tools and materials we're going to need. Now, I used a circular saw, miter saw, and a table saw because I found it made the job easier. However, you could get away with just a circular saw or a table saw. You really need something that's going to be able to cut the length as well as rip the width of a board. We're also going to need a drill, a router, a palm sander, and some wood clamps. For the materials, we're going to need our cedar fence pickets, wood glue, sandpaper, wood screws, and exterior wood stain. All in, we're looking at about $30 to $35 per set of shutters. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is select the style of our shutters. As you can see here, there's a few different options. Ultimately, for this build, we went with the board and batten style. Now that we have the style selected, we need to determine the size. Now, traditionally, the shutters are meant to cover the window. However, I've found that 14 to 15 inches wide seems to look good next to any size window. For the height, I like to use the overall height of the window, not including the trim. However, you can play around with this and decide what looks best for your build. Alright, now that we have all our design options selected, it's time to get building. First thing we're going to want to do is trim our fence pickets down to length. My windows measured at an overall height of 48 inches, and I decided to trim all of my fence pickets to 50. This way, when I glue them up and I don't have my edges completely straight, I have a little extra that I can trim off later. One thing you'll notice me doing here is trimming off the very edge of these fence pickets because they're not always square, and then I have a stop block set up to my 50 inches that I'll hit for a perfect cut every time. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is take our previously cut boards and clean up the edges on our table saw. You'll notice this first step, I'm doing it with my DIY squaring sled. If you're interested in this build, let me know and I'll throw something up on the channel. Once I had this first edge cleaned up, I could use it as my straight edge, set my table saw to my desired width, and rip my boards the rest of the way. Once I had my boards ripped down, I was ready to hit them with the router and give them a shiplap type edge to join them together. I decided to join the boards this way to help prevent any future warping. To get the shiplap edge, I used a rabbiting bit and set the depth at half the thickness of my boards. At the top of the screen, you'll see the routed board profiles in red. The flashing blue squares represent the material removed with the router. Now that our profiles are ready, we can glue them together. I'm using my longer bar clamps to pull the boards together and remove any gaps, and I'm using my spring clamps located at the board seams with a few scrap pieces of wood to hold the faces of the boards flush. I let the shutters dry overnight before removing them from the clamps. Once removed from the clamps, I hit the shutters with sandpaper, starting with 80 grit, moving to 120 and then 220 for a nice smooth finish. After sanding, I wanted to trim off the excess length that I had left as a tolerance for the assembly process. I wanted to add some depth to my shutters. To do this, I decided to detail the seams and edges. At the seams of the boards, I clamped a straight edge and hit them with my V-groove bit. Once that was complete, I switched over to my chamfer edge bit and hit the sides of the shutter. With the main body of the shutter complete, it's time to create our batten. I took my leftover scraps from cutting my pickets down and ripped them to about 3.5 inches wide. I then measured from chamfer edge to chamfer edge on the main body to determine the length of the batten. Once the batten was cut, I hit it with the same sandpaper and gave it the same chamfer edge profile before attaching them with wood glue and a few screws through the backside of the shutter. The only thing left to do is hit him with the stain. And here's a look at the final product. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, share it with a friend or two. Please subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest builds. We'll see you next time.